You were asking me what is the favorite, part of my job, and that's when I came to realize that we have the same favorite part of our jobs.
We do.
So why don't you tell me what that is?
Meeting the client. My favorite part is meeting the client, and then the sort of high touch onboarding part of learning what they need, what their family's like. I kind of joke like I want to know what you eat for breakfast.
Yeah.
I really go deep early on with getting to know people, and I think the relationship building is like everything to me, and it's definitely my favorite part.
I love it. 100%. I concur. And Dave was asking me, actually no, Dave wasn't asking me this. I told Dave, I said, honestly, if I didn't have to work, I would still do it for free. I would do design consultations for free, simply because going into a space, and I think sometimes you take for granted what you can see in a space, and that most people actually can't see that in the space. And when you come in, you look at a space and you have a vision for the future and how it will fit that family and how it will help solve their problems, as well as, from a technical layout standpoint, as well as from an aesthetic standpoint. It's a gift that, I think you might not realize you have,
I totally agree. I think that we take it for granted that like we walk into a space and we can kind of almost see the end.
Right,
already.
right.
It's like the middle and getting there is that journey, but it's like I think it is taken for granted that not everybody has that. Certainly not the client. There are lots of other creatives that can see things, but I think it is like truly a gift.
Yeah.
And it's fun to like get that out of someone or watch them kind of see that the process unfold too. That's exciting.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I was alluding it to painting, because it is art, it's definitely an art form to be able to see a space and creatively, come up with something that wasn't there before. But as a painter, it's really you and your canvas. And when you said the connection with people, it's the painter will have that after the fact. But with this and in this world, you're really painting with people there. It's that extra element of humanity involved in your creation.
Yeah, sort of in real time. Like that analogy of a painter. If a painter is painting a landscape, they're in connection with the landscape. I think what we're doing, it is like a little improvisation too. Like you're in real time.
100%.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
The connection though to the people, I think that's where we were talking in another conversation about how no two homes are the same and no two clients are the same. And I think that's where the improv kind of comes in to play, which I think is a life skill too, a design skill.
Totally.
Yeah,
I think it could be very daunting. If you're not comfortable going into a space and coming up with something, I could just imagine almost like a stage fright aspect of, oh my God, I'm going to have to come up with something.
Yeah.
But it's, not to sort of toot a horn of being like, oh, this comes naturally. But it is wonderful to be able to do that and to have pleasure in exercising. It's almost like for me it's cooking.
Yeah.
Like if I had to cook for someone, and I say like I cannot cook. If I had to cook for people, I would be mortified. Like if but this to me is pleasure. To some people it might not be, but there's certain fields, where passion shows, and I think your passion for this shows too. And actually, what I was most amazed about with you and your firm, well, you yourself, you're great. Like, obviously, we clicked the moment we met. 100%.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah.
But what I was most impressed with is your process is so thorough. And when you walked us through everything and all the books that you have, how did you come to develop such a refined process for interiors?
I think it came from literally like I put myself in the shoes of a client and thinking what, to dovetail on like that first question of, meeting with a client, and I could sometimes see stress, like stress on somebody's face of like what to expect and how does this flow? And so I started to put together, and this was about 7 or 8 years ago, really honing in and refining our process in a very like step-by-step framework, but then like allows for such an open collaboration between architect and builder and client, obviously. But it really came from need of like wanting to solve for X, of like that client was a little nervous and like what to expect, and so I'm like, so here's how we do it. And I could see the relief of what that framework provided. And
Right.
so I think that's where it just was like, then we kind of riff off, like, it started with a very simple framework, and then it got better and better over the years, and I think we're in a really good place as clients have given us such great feedback.
That's awesome to provide them kind of. It's almost like having the rails up when bowling, just to.
That I've actually used that exact analogy. Where you're bowling with bumpers.
You're bowling with bumpers.
We're not gonna steer you wrong.
Right.
This is bowling with bumpers.
Yeah.
I actually use that exact
That's
analogy.
amazing. That's great.
Because I'm not going to show you anything I wouldn't want to use in my own home. It's not my
Right.
home.
Sure.
But it's going to be of a certain like taste and preference that like it's we're not going to steer you wrong. You're going
Right.
to have very not limitless choices, but essentially. But you're not going to make a bad choice.
Yeah.
Because we have the guardrails up.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes,
Totally.
sorry to cut you off.
No,
there. So
no.
sometimes with an interior designer, you could argue, and I'm sure this would be offensive to an interior designer, that that you're boxed into a style. Like that's you, that's your style, and people will hire you for your style. Sure, I'm sure there's an element of that. There is a specific style that they might lean towards. But I really liked what you were saying earlier about that. Client Mary, walking into the space and. Tell me that again, because I just love that as a...
Yeah, so I think, when we talk with a client early on, they might come to us through a referral, or they might come to us, just through another source of anonymity. And when we talk about style, I always say I don't have a particular style, I have a process. And the process comes out, in several forms, but really it's really informed by architecture and location and then the people. And so when I had a new client come to us, and she was a referral from a client, we'll call her Mary, in Greenwich, Connecticut, and so the client, we'll call her Jane.
Sure.
So Jane came and she said, I went to Mary's house, and I've known Mary for decades, and when I walked into Mary's house, I could see that it was fully Mary. It was just an elevated version of Mary that I knew Mary couldn't really achieve on her own. And so that to me was like the biggest compliment, that her friend Jane was coming to me saying, like, it was Mary's fingerprints all over this place, but I knew that she needed the help to kind of bring her to her highest potential. And so I think that's what we do best, is like taking the client's direction and then bringing that to the highest potential that's possible.
I love that. It's a real testament to your very thorough process.
I think so, yeah.
That I admire very much. And yeah, I think that's really important to also, because you brought the people, the architecture, and the location. I thought that's really nice what you just said there.
Yeah, and no two are the same.
Right.
Really.
That combo is always going to be different throughout the world, and I think it's really great to factor interior design that speaks for those 3 points.
And depending on, so we work in multiple markets, and different means and methods come from those markets. So like we're working on a project in the Midwest right now. That's a totally different culture than the West Coast or the East Coast, and even the building materials are really different. And I think that's what's most fun too, is like learning what's best practices for those areas. And so that's again what happened. Like it's an improvisation of some kind in the early stages.
Sure.
Of learning all of those, and then even just the people. You're learning culturally the lingo and the sort of light touch with introducing, kind of all of that is, I think is so fascinating to me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you ever get pushback from clients, and kind of have you ever sort of presented something and it's had to then change the the direction that you've gone in?
It's a great question. I think that because of like that heavy lift with onboarding, we're really getting to know people pretty early. So we haven't had pushback on design direction. We've had a couple of interesting reactions to some of the design presentation, where we've had a client weep.
Oh wow. Wow.
And cry, and she
emotionally?
Yes, and
wow.
She's a beloved client that we've now had for 7 years on our book of business, so to speak, 3 projects over 7 years.
Sure.
And she wept and she said, I don't know if I deserve this.
Oh my
God! I was like, of course you do, but it was such a, again, like reimagining the space that she new and we're showing it in 3D or rendering tools
Yeah, sure.
and the materiality and she wept with like joy.
That's so beautiful.
But it was really like she said like I don't know if I deserve this, and it was like of course you do.
Of course you do.
So I think that's also like learning this emotional detail behind people's homes.
Yeah.
And primary homes are like, like bring out the most emotion.
Of course.
Sometimes a secondary home or a vacation home, things are like, ooh, let's have
it's a little less.
But the primary homes are very delicate.
Of course.
In some cases, people have been living there for 20 years or longer, or or even just bought it, and that's another journey.
It's their space, and it's really for them.
Yeah,
that's so beautiful, and that really shows the testament of it is an art form, and it is creativity, and the way it touches people is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Our tagline is lifting spirits of spaces.
Oh, I love that.
And to hear that someone weeps at the, oh, do I deserve this? It's really just like that's so beautiful because obviously it's where they live. It's going to touch their lives.
Yeah.
And lift them.
Yeah, and I think our companies are aligned on that. It's like it's far beyond design, and it's far
100%.
It's far beyond dwellings.
100%.
It's like so relationship focused and experiential in that way that like they keep coming back.
Right.
And I think that's the ultimate compliment.
I love that. Our CEO Dave says it so well. It's the undocumented journey. We all have pretty pictures.
Yes.
Not all, but we mostly all have pretty pictures.
Yeah.
But the undocumented journey that got you there is the real tale of, how was it? How did it go? How smooth was it? And
I often say, and I know you guys are in the same boat, different pond, with construction and build, but like for designers, I always say to a client, I don't envy the seat that you're in when you're trying to choose the right designer to partner with, because at a certain level you're just going to always get a beautiful result, and what I just like to say is like who you choose, that experience is going to be ultimately different.
Right.
You can guarantee you're going to have a beautiful room or pretty pictures, but it is that journey or that experience along the way that can be wildly different.
Right.
Depending on which path you choose with the design firm. But same thing with construction and architecture as well.
Of course. It's a partnership.
It is.
You're not buying shoes. You're in it for the long.
It's
the
long
long
game.
haul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's really a long game.
So we're a design build firm, obviously, and we do it all. However, I would always say there's an elevated element of interior design, and bringing in an artist like an interior designer, especially like yourself, who adds that extra layer of, wow, this space is really finished. So selfishly, I always love to partner with interior designers simply because it always, always, always elevates the project, and it just, the final results are just like mind-bogglingly beautiful. We work with interior designers very well in that we're an architectural firm and a construction firm, and we have our process, and it's actually very similar to your process, and it's very delineated, and I'm sure that helps designers like yourself to have that both parties understand what the next step is, who's doing what. Let me ask you this, what is your preference when working with architects and builders as far as the process goes?
I have no preference beyond like a really nice friendly kind of kickoff meeting of roles and responsibilities just to see where there are any overlaps, because I always like to tell a client, I don't want you to ever pay twice on your services. So that to me is like having a wonderful initial communication of like who's doing what,
right?
So that if there's an architect on the project, and most projects we have an architect,
right?
And so there are drawings and certain levels of detail with elevations and millwork and things, and so that's kind of like, let's talk about the housekeeping of like that, and then beyond that, I mean, it's really collaborative through the whole way, and I think clients don't always understand that initially, but we're all really there for the long-term project timeline. I think we're there really to the end, tucking them into bed. Right. Quite literally.
Quite literally, yeah, with the soft furnishings.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
So that's just, that's to me, that's always going to be the case. But I think, the preference to me is just really good clarity with communication for anybody that's involved, but also with the client too. We want clear communication with the client so that everything can kind of move really smoothly, and the joints are oiled.
Of course, yeah. That's well said, and that's our sort of biggest selling point is our single source of accountability for the client. And now that doesn't mean that it's just, one person one-on-one. It takes a village to achieve the final, the final product.
Yeah.
And that's where that collaboration and the smoothness, the oiled processes, joining hands, still acting as a single source of accountability for the client.
And you just mentioned a word that I love is accountability. Like, always do what you say and say what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that just makes the best team.
100%.
And the best outcome and client experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's your favorite, this is a really tough question, but like, what's your favorite part of the design process?
That's like asking me who my favorite kid is. I don't know how to answer that, except for, as I mentioned earlier, like the relationship building is really my favorite part. So learning who the client is, learning what their needs are, meeting them where they're at, whether they're bringing us into the project midstream or we're brought in even before a property is purchased. And sort
do
of,
you get brought on as an interior designer before the
So I've actually house hunted with clients.
Wow.
So that's
awesome.
That's another kind of level of service that we're equipped to do and have done for years. We've had clients say, "Hey, can you look at a few properties with us?" And we'll bring in even a builder too.
Sure.
Of course, like to say if we want to change this kitchen to this part of the house instead, like that.
How
kind
feasible
of stuff.
is it?
But even just like that's the level of trust that we're like sort of appointed with.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and then it's really fun. We've had clients where the project's long gone, and I get a text message that she's in a store and she's purchasing something, and she asked me, what color orchid should I buy?
Wow, that's great.
Or like, my daughter's getting married, can you opine on like some bridesmaids colors?
Really?
So there's
Wow.
like this like
That's beautiful.
long-term relationship that keeps going.
Yeah, they become friends.
They do, yeah, they do. I mean, it's always it's a business, agreement in the beginning, but I mean, it's like without fail, where we become friendly.
100%.
And I think that's just a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's great. You rock.
Yeah, thanks. So do you.